Hi, welcome back to Authors Aloud. Today's guest is one of those rare people whose story really stays with you for a long time after you hear it, and especially after you meet her.
She's a psychologist, keynote speaker, and the author of I Can See Clearly Now, a memoir about love, grief, and gratitude. And it's a powerful memoir
Mm.
about love, loss, and the healing power of gratitude.
I had the enormous pleasure of working with Peggy as she has recorded her audiobook with myAudio Rocks. Peggy has this super rare gift for vulnerability and bringing really powerful emotion to her narrations. It's been an absolute joy to work with her.
We can't wait for you to hear more about her journey and how she's helping others turn grief into growth.
So, an absolutely sincere welcome to Dr. Peggy DeLong.
Thank you for
Hi,
having me.
Peggy.
Thank
Of
you.
course.
Great
We're
to be
so
here.
excited. Peggy, your book, I Can See Clearly Now, is such an emotionally honest story, right? Can you give, just for the listeners, a really brief overview of this memoir and your story and what it's about?
Sure. It is about a tr- really going through a crisis in my life when I was in my mid 20s. At that point, things were going really well until suddenly they weren't. When
Mm.
it appeared literally overnight, my fiance developed a lump on the side of his neck, and unfortunately, it was a very aggressive form of cancer. So the story is about my experiences, loving him, taking care of him through his treatment, coping after his death. And then, unfortunately, 6 weeks later, my father suddenly died, and my mother and I found ourselves two young widows. Very
Mm.
unusual relationship, a bond that we never wanted to have,
Right.
but living together as two young widows really made our relationship very strong.
You share such intimate moments of love and loss. What was it like to revisit those experiences while writing?
It was extremely therapeutic. The whole process of writing the memoir took me 25 years, but the actual remembering events didn't take much mental energy because I had it all written down during that whole experience. Well, I've always kept a diary from second grade. So when my fiance was sick, it was more of a journal than a diary because I left it everywhere in the hospital. I didn't want, people could pick it up anywhere, whether it was his room or a doctor's office. I carried that journal with me everywhere. And when I was reviewing it, I thought, well, maybe this could actually help somebody someday.
Mm.
Because when my fiance died, I was 26. And it was so helpful to me to find books of other widows who had found love again, but I couldn't find anything written by someone in their 20s. It
Mm.
was a very lonely loss is a lonely experience, period,
Yeah.
but when you're 20 and lose your partner, like, nobody could relate, and it was so
Yeah.
helpful for me to find those stories. So as I was going through my journal entries, I thought, "Oh, this might help somebody someday." And, it was really a story that I needed to tell. It was just something I felt compelled to do. And during the whole process of actually turning my journal into the memoir was extremely emotional and very therapeutic and healing. And during the process, I was married, I raised my 3 young children, I was running a private practice, so life was very full and active while I was simultaneously working on the book, which is part of why it took me so long, but it was something that I simply had to do. So it took me 25 years, but I'm so proud of it and so glad that it's out in the world.
Amazing.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask you that question. I'm glad you answered it already. I wondered at what point, like, were you already married and were you already, in living your life happily when you went back to revisit this? Because we don't always know, like, what we're still carrying in terms of, or what needs to be sort of worked through, right? I just think that is so interesting and such a great testament to the idea that just because it's been 25 years doesn't mean that you might not still need to work through some things, right?
Right, right.
Yeah, I think that's amazing.
And also wonderful that my husband was so supportive because half the book
Mm.
is about another man.
Yeah, that you
So,
loved dearly.
yes.
Yeah.
And to have his blessing in writing it. And we had a vacation home at the time, and that's where I would do most of my writing. I would write in big chunks of time, uninterrupted, and it was so. Just being in that healing space was also helpful for me. And another really neat thing is that my husband didn't read a word of the book until it
Oh,
was out in print. So
wow.
he trusted me that much to talk about him and another man, so that's part of why I married him because he's just that special,
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
kind of, just a little bit of a story in the book. I After my fiancé passed, I went to see a medium. It
Mm.
was my first time losing anybody close to me. I just couldn't make sense of death and, what my future was going to be like, and one of the mediums told me that I was going to marry a teacher named John. Well, sure enough, my husband's name is John, and he's a teacher.
My
Wow.
goodness.
He wasn't a teacher when I met him, but he became a teacher. So, and I have it on a little cassette tape just to prove that I'm not making it up or crazy.
Just for the sake of telling a good story, you're not
Yes.
making that up,
Uh,
right? Gotcha. So, one of the things that is amazing about your book is this thread of gratitude that's woven throughout the book, right? Was that something that you discovered when you were in the midst of the grief? Like, did you just start to discover it then? Was it throughout the years, or was it something that you started discovering as you were writing?
It was something I discovered in the midst of his treatment.
Wow.
I was an ungrateful teenager. I was an ungrateful young adult. I grew up in an area with tremendous privilege where I was too busy comparing myself to other people and I didn't appreciate what I had. Because it seemed like everybody had more and lots more. You know, kids driving Ferraris and BMWs to school, that kind of privilege. And I had to share a used vehicle with my three siblings. The four of us were teenagers at the same time. My father bought us a used car that was so old the rust had worn out part of the metal. You could actually see the road. on
Oh, yes, I understand that. I was in that situation.
So I didn't appreciate that I even had a car to share with my siblings. So it took tragedy in my life to really open up my eyes to the power of gratitude, and I didn't realize when it was happening, while it was happening. So there came a time when the doctor said that there was nothing left that they could do for my fiance and that he was going to die. And it was in those last days of his life that were so unpredictable because each day I didn't know if that was going to be the day. I didn't know when he was going to die. Some days he could speak. Other days he couldn't. Some days he could open his eyes, some days he couldn't. Every day was so incredibly unpredictable. But the one thing that was predictable was that I could get myself a cup of hazelnut coffee. And it was that coffee, it was the predictability of the coffee that made me feel grateful and
Yeah.
comfort. And I had no idea at the time that what I was doing was practicing gratitude for something so simple and predictable. Now it makes sense to me that hanging on to that one thing and gratefulness for that simple thing is what got me through. So that really is when I identify that my world changed through the power of gratitude and got me through the worst days of my life. And then, little did I know that just around the corner, 6 weeks later, my father was going to die. And then once again, it helped with that as well,
Yeah.
and still
Grief
does every day.
grief compounded on top of grief. That's wow.
You've developed such meaningful programs for women like midlife awakening sisterhood. Can you tell us about how that came to be and what that's all about?
Yes, I've always believed in the power of community. I've always needed it myself. That's what got me through when my fiance died and my father died. It was community, bereavement groups, my friends. I've always been drawn to groups. And if one doesn't exist, I start it. So I've started lots of different groups. I've been running a women's walking group for 11 years.
Mm.
When I was lonely in my private practice as a forensic psychologist, I started a group of other forensic psychologists. But now that I'm in midlife, there's a very very sneaky loneliness that creeps in when the adult children have left the home and relationships change. Friends you're just not as close anymore. And I knew it wasn't just me. I'm also a therapist, and I would start to hear these stories of loneliness that women experience. And I'm sure fathers do as well, and men who don't have children, but that's who tends to come and see me are midlife women. So I thought, well, I'll just start this group and really not only provide community but also education. I love teaching, and just about everything that I teach is either free or low cost, really simple to implement, and is backed by research. So there's a teaching component in the Midlife Awakening Sisterhood. And people also need one-on-one support, so it also comes with one-on-one coaching sessions with me, and it just brings me so much joy to run this program, and I'm meeting women from all over the country. We meet weekly, and it's just really taken off, and I'm having so much fun with it.
And you talked a little bit about, your work as a therapist. Can you talk a little bit about how what you experience led you to what you're doing now and the work that you're doing now?
Yes, because I know deep emotional pain.
Mm.
I know what it feels like, but I also know the importance of not ignoring that pain. And unfortunately, so much of what I see perpetuated on social media and by influencers and even well meaning loved ones is this idea that in order to be happy, we need to stuff our emotional pain. Or platitudes like choose happiness. It's so much more than a choice. As a psychologist, I know that about 50% of what contributes to our happiness level at any given moment is completely out of our control, and that's our genetics. It's so much more than a choice. So I feel like it's my mission to debunk some of these myths that are out there and to help women with dealing with emotional pain. That's what is so neglected. Yes, we know how to do positive thinking. We can do lots of things to elevate our mood, but what I see really missing is helping people feel and process emotional pain, and that's really what I'm known for.
That's wonderful. That's really, really beautiful. Yeah.
Amazing. So as we mentioned, you recorded an audiobook with My Audio Rocks from the comfort of your home. What was that process like for you?
It has been so much fun. It's really a dream come true. I have wanted to do this since the book came out in print. All of my life, people have told me that I have a nice voice, and my busy friends want to listen while they're in the car or while they're walking. So it's a dream come true, but the actual process of reading it, once again, has been very therapeutic. Visiting, I haven't read the book in a while, so it's like I'm reading it all over again, and it's just a completely different experience to be saying it out loud. Where I've read it several times, but I've never said it out loud. It's very different when you're actually saying the words out loud. And
What surprised you about that? What surprised you about that process?
um, well, one time I just laughed out loud.
That's awesome.
It's
remembering a,
fun. I love that.
re- remembering a very silly memory. And other times just needing to pause because I'm choked up with tears.
Mhm.
Uh, it's been a very emotional experience.
So I have to say, as the person that coaches the narrators, you are first of all, you're a natural. Um, and secondly, we had a lot of conversation about that. Like, because one of the things that has been obvious to me since I met Peggy was that she is very good at feeling her emotions, right? She's not afraid to feel her emotions, and vulnerability is absolutely a strength for her, right? So when we were talking about it, she's like, "Well, what happens when I get choked up?" And I was like, "That's okay." You know, like there's and then we talked about those subtle differences, right? Between hearing that emotion in your voice is so moving.
So
But if
moving.
you get to a point where we can't understand the words, then we have to take a second, right? Because you want to understand the words. So it was a really lovely process to have those conversations, and I feel very honored that I got to have those conversations with Peggy, and she's been absolutely a dream to work with, and like I said, she's 100% a natural at this.
Thank you.
So any future books we should absolutely talk about because you just are doing such a great job. You're almost done. We're very, very close to be having this one wrapped.
So, Peggy, I'm so curious because when I did my audiobook, one of the things that I felt so deeply is that once there was a record of my voice reading my words, I felt like oh, now I'm well represented. When someone can just read your book and assign any tone and, they can miss all the jokes. It felt more vulnerable than the audiobook, which feels like, oh, if you want a real representation of what I was thinking, you'll listen to me read the audiobook. I'm wondering if you had a similar experience.
Yes, and that was part of the reason one of the reasons why I wanted to narrate it and make it an audiobook, and there was no question that I wanted it to be me and not somebody else, and
Mm,
I know I've
of
seen things.
course.
Yeah, that meant a lot to me for me to be the narrator, to give that, inflection where I wanted it and for people to hear the emotion behind what I went through.
Well, and honestly, it is why we do what we do at My Audio Rocks is because I'm a professional narrator. Could I narrate your book? Yes. Am I ever going to fully capture what your voice can do in that situation? Absolutely not. Unless we went word for word and you told me, exactly how you wanted inflections and what you wanted to me instill. Look, I'm a good actor, but I can't be you, right? And that's why I think it's such a uh I think a disservice is done to authors who, especially with memoirs, want to do their own books. And often publishers are like, nope, you
Hmm.
gotta do a narrator. You gotta have a professional voice. Well, I'm not gonna cry in the place I might get a little teary at certain things, but I'm not gonna have the same reactions you do. And so it's one of the reasons I'm so excited about your book. Like, I just am really excited to have it out there with your voice. I think it's great.
Peggy,
Me
tell
too.
me, I'm most excited about, our authors, of course, get a gigantic um the armored trunk full of equipment sent to their home, and then you have everything that you need to record your audiobook. What was that like receiving that monster package in the mail?
That was very exciting, and the instructions were great. It was easy to put together, but as easy as it was, my husband is much better at that kind of thing.
Hmm.
I could have followed the directions, but he's just got a knack for that. He doesn't even need to look at directions. So he had it together. I don't know how long. I think I went for a walk, and when I came back, it was all put together and it and in the corner right now behind me. So easy.
Awesome. Awesome.
Amazing. The big armored trunk was at my house for like a week, and I was really excited about it.
Yeah.
I didn't get to record anything. It was just there. It was just on a
We
layover.
should have. We should have done that. I didn't even think about it. We should have had you put it together and record something.
I'm too chaotic, you know.
Oh, fair, fair. Um, and let's not sleep on the fact that Shiraz who is engineering for us right now, has also been with you through this whole process of the actual recording. And I know that has been a good experience for you as well. He's a wonderful engineer and uh, very good at what he does and kind and patient and all of those things too. So I'm really glad that you had the experience of working with him as well.
Well, and that was part of the reason why I chose to do this with this company because I didn't want to just do it blindly on my own. I knew I needed feedback.
Hmm.
I've never done anything like this before, and I needed that professional guidance. So when I knew
Right.
that I would get it, then I knew I was investing my time and money very wisely to have this done.
Got it.
Yeah,
That's
it was my
great.
first instinct to do it myself also. I'm a scrappy person and I've made a career out of figuring out some really hard stuff and getting it done. And it just is not that does not carry over to audiobooks. It just doesn't. The requirements for upload are so complicated, and audiobook listeners are so discerning, and it's a really intimidating process.
Yeah. That's true. That's very true. And we've been very lucky to have such a great team that knows what they're doing. Peggy, I really want to know what you would like people to take away from this book, um, that are in the middle of their own grief. What do you hope they take away from your story?
I hope that they take away that truly the way to heal is to feel. Grief doesn't just go away, although we would love it to. It just doesn't happen that way. The only way to truly heal is to allow yourself to feel it. But it's always helpful to have tools to lift you out of it so you're not stuck in that grief all day long. And
Right.
that is where gratitude was so powerful for me. The journaling, that's a daily journaling is what helped me through. I talk about the power of relationships and getting support. So, taking care of your emotional needs and asking for help when you need it. That is
Yeah.
all of that is a big takeaway, as well as the idea that love never dies. There's a few
Mm.
stories within the book that, with certainty, I don't question that there's more to this world than we can see. I only gave a few of them during the book, and they almost continue to happen to me daily, but there's such a comfort that love doesn't die. Just because the person isn't here in the physical world anymore, it doesn't mean that love dies, and we still have a relationship with our loved ones.
That's lovely. That's beautiful. So we like to do some slightly lighter hearted questions. Um, Still talking, around your book. I'm going to start with, you talk a lot about finding joy in small things, right? Like you were just referring to. What is aside from coffee, because we'll get there. What's one small daily ritual that always lifts your spirits?
Being outside in
Mm,
nature, always, predictably.
yeah, that's great.
If
That's great. What is it about that? What?
Um, It started from my childhood. My parents we all loved to be outdoors,
Hmm.
and it was so, just so connected to my mental health. So that intuitively, if I had an issue with a friend or break up with a boyfriend or whatever it may be, I would just went out in nature and would go for a walk and feel just so much better, feel lighter, and that the problem wasn't as uh, daunting as I thought that it was. It just Nature for me has just had this magical way of making me feel a little bit better. And especially when my fiance died, I went to the mountains, skied by myself, skied with friends. It was so incredibly healing for me to be in the mountains. And it's helpful for when going through a difficult time, but also preventatively. So I look at being outside on a regular basis that helps me with my future mental health.
Mm, a
you're
gift to tomorrow you.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
you're a psychologist and a gratitude expert, but when you need a reset, what's your go-to pick me up?
In addition to nature and gratitude, it is time with people. The number one predictor of happiness and well-being is our human relationships. So I reach out to people. I don't wait for people to reach out to me. I One of my favorite phrases is it starts with me. So whatever I'm seeking, I don't wait for that to come my way. I be that for somebody else, and then paradoxically it comes back to me.
Mm,
And I learned that during my grief, during the awful time. Some people were there, other people were not. But when I needed it, I learned that people couldn't read my mind. I had to ask for it and let people
yeah.
know what I needed. So human connection is so important to me, and I weave that into um, my talks. Everything that I teach touches upon the power of human connection, and in ways that we can do so that feel good, don't take much time or energy, but truly have a long-lasting impact on our well-being.
We've really romanticized that idea of people being able to read our minds, right? And we've made it so romantic.
Right, if you
Whether
loved me,
it's
you'd know exactly what
that
I need.
that's right. Or if you were a real friend or whatever, we've like made it this big romantic thing. I remember when I had to get over that in my relationship and be like, well, uh, no, of course nobody can read my mind, right? And it was a hard lesson, but I think that that's such a good point that you make. Um, how are you taking your coffee these days?
I still have my hazelnut coffee every
You
day,
do?
every single day. Yes, yes.
That's awesome.
At least 1 cup, sometimes 2, but at least 1 every single morning.
Do you
And
put anything in it? Are you a sugar
I
and
I
cream?
put just a little bit of sugar, and I put almond cream,
Uh-huh.
and, it's so good.
Lovely. That's absolutely lovely.
Hey, thank you so
Um,
much for being here and for sharing your heart with
absolutely.
us and with the world through your book and your audiobook.
Thank you so
Thank you
much for
so
having me.
much. Her memoir, I can see clearly now, is a moving reminder that even in loss, there can be beauty and gratitude.
You can also sign up for her free resource, The Grateful Day 5-Day Challenge at drpeggydelong.com/The Grateful Day, which we'll link in the show notes.
Thank you for joining us on Authors Aloud. Remember to find something to be grateful for today. What are you grateful for, Ashley?
I'm grateful for you, Kristen.
I'm grateful for you, Ashley.
Love fest.
Even the tiniest bit of gratefulness can really give us hope. So let's find that hope and take care of each other out there. Bye.